tell me a little bit about you for folks maybe that haven't met you before and about your company and what you do.
Thank you. And that's mutual. I enjoy doing these and always love doing them with you. So thank you again for the time. I actually had some personal experience, believe it or not, with ageism. And and in my course of studies, I have a degree in women and gender studies and African American studies, and I did some research on the impact of age discrimination in the workplace toward women over 40, because 40 is the protected class according to the law. And the results kind of just inspired me to say, okay, just go for it. And so I went out on my own, and I do career coaching and consultant work with primarily women, but anyone. And I also teach a class on building your legacy season, which is about what we want to be when we grow up, so to speak, since growing up is longer now. And also I have a newsletter on LinkedIn that people can check out if they're interested. And I just like to work with people and help them understand their value and understand that the social construction of aging has to change, and companies have to change their attitudes. It's not us that has to change, it's them. And so we just need to help them along. So
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there's so much self-doubt that can creep in
yes,
and
yes.
think I'm the problem, right?
I'm too old to do this. No, 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 no.
Yeah. So how can folks leverage their experiences to stand out in this marketplace right now and not let that be bogged down by those negative stories that aren't true?
Right. Well, I think to begin with, I think they need to take an inventory of what skills they do have and experience. So they need to just sit down and write down all the experiences and skills they have, or look at their resume if they've put that together, to see what skills and experience they have. But they also need to be aware of how they're presenting it. To take a look at some job descriptions. I always say, for example, when I started recruiting and being a recruiting manager years ago, talent acquisition wasn't the chic phrase for recruiting, and it's there now. So just ensure that the skills and the experiences that you're presenting them in the jargon that's utilized today. That you're not saying something that people won't connect because it's from 15, 20 years ago. So it's very important. And also, when you start to make a list of the things that you've done and the skills that you acquired, both professionally and personally, usually especially when you're an older person, it's a very long list. And there's a lot of value in it. And you need to understand how valuable you are and what those tools can do to bring your value to the table. So doing that self-assessment, I think, helps you build your confidence, because you can, for example, women who have parented will say, well, I was out of the workplace. Yes, but I always say, if you were a parent who worked for the PTA or who was a class mother and coordinated trips and negotiated with other parents for chaperones and such, you have enormous skill, because getting a bunch of parents together is very difficult. So
Yes.
always look at what it is you did and what's the skills that connected. And then you need to relate those as transferable skills to what it is you want to do, where your goal is. I think the other thing is that to really leverage your experience, you need to some extent put yourself looking in the right place. So there are places, I always say, if you Google the term returnships, you'll find companies that have developed these intern programs for older employees. So if you're out of work for a year, you can apply and get brought back into the fold in these positions. But the point being that list of companies that have those programs, they obviously embrace older employees and understand the value. So those are companies where you're going to go to their career sites and look at what other opportunities they have that might be suitable to you. And there's another site called the Age Friendly Institute that has a program called CAFE, which is certified age-friendly employers. And again, you're not going to find jobs, but you're going to find a list of companies. and look at the industries that you're interested in, look who's participating. These companies have physically signed and made a commitment to say that they will embrace and welcome older employees. So you want to look at their career sites. So if you're looking in those areas, then those people will appreciate your extensive experience. And another important idea about leveraging that extensive experience is not just saying, I improved this number or I achieved this goal, but put a story with it. Because as we, as everything changes and we have, the gigs and all these things that change, we have storytelling, which has always been there, but now it's called storytelling. And it's very important when you are on an interview that if there's a question about how you achieved something or what you did, that you can relay a story behind it and how you did it and what you overcame to do it and what the successes were. Because stories relate to individuals' hearts and not necessarily their minds. And so at the end of the day, when you leave, hopefully that will help them remember you. So those are some things I think that older professionals should pay attention to for them to really be able to benefit from their experience.
Yeah, I love that. Keeping up to date with the most recent jargon, making the stories your own. Yeah, those are such important
and
things.
looking for again, age-friendly employers, people that understand the value. I mean, it's changing, but you especially want to target those companies that have programs that obviously say, okay, this is a valuable employee.
And what strategies can older workers use to continuously update their skills and stay relevant in their industries?
Well, I think, again, that starts with, I always say, unfortunately, as an older employee, the responsibility, the burden, all of it to find a job falls on us. I mean, that does with anyone, but as you get older, it becomes sometimes more challenging. And so there's a lot of self-analysis and a lot of taking inventory, so to speak, of what we do and what we have. So I think they need to do that exactly. Start by an inventory of what are your skills that you have that you're very comfortable with, and what is it that you might be missing and that you need to update. There are online assessments. There's training. There's tools available all online. So when you identify what it is that you really need to strengthen, you can go to places like Udemy and Coursera and look to see, or LinkedIn, and look to see what they're offering that you can involve yourself in and improve those skills. And if you participate in something with a certification, you definitely want to put that on your resume so that they understand that you are a lifelong learner, that you enjoy lifelong learning, and that you are active in it. So you always want to do that. But that's the most important thing is that you really want to establish those goals for yourself and then do that self-analysis. As far as updating your skills, if you're currently working and there are areas where you feel you might need some shoring up, you might go to your manager or to HR and recommend a mentorship program. And maybe someone younger with a skill will help you and you can help them. So those are always very, very rewarding and successful and productive. So that's something you might suggest if you're in a currently in employment situation.
Yeah, I love those. And you've been doing this for a minute now, so I'm sure you have some successful career transition stories by older workers that you've worked with. Can you speak to any of those and what made those transitions shine and succeed?
Yes. Okay. So speaking of the returnship programs, I do have one client who was trying to get back in after a long absence. And so we did her resume with trying not to go back past the recommended 10 to 15 years, but she had some significant experience prior to that would impact her ability to where she was applying. So we included those under previous professional experience. As far as the skills and the company, a very well-known company that she worked for. And so she did get accepted into a mentorship, an internship program, a returnship program. And that went on for a year, and then you're either offered a position or you can, you at least update your resume, and you've worked for a year with someone whose name is known. So that worked out well. I also had a client who she was really desirous of transitioning to a nonprofit, and she was in corporate, and she found it too corporate. And so she actually volunteered for a nonprofit that she knew of, and she endorsed what their program was and what they were doing. And so she volunteered. And at the end of the day, after much, I mean, none of this happens in 6 weeks, but after a period of time that she volunteered, she actually wound up getting a job to run the nonprofit. So, so you never know what doors will open when you do those things. And then, of course, someone who's a teacher who transitioned into selling educational software. So it's applying what you know, and where can you apply it, and where does your passion lie? And that's very important. In the course I teach, we talk about the Japanese system of ikigai, which is what can you do, what can you get paid to do, what do you love to do, and what does the world need? And those are the things you have to think about, because you have to be passionate about what you want to step into. We can't live the life expectancy that we have now and the quality of life that we have now if we're not doing something that we're excited by. We have to be able to get up in the morning and want to go where we're going. So those transitions are absolutely possible. It's really, again, analyzing what you're doing, what you want to do, and how to get the two to meet. So.
I love that. I love that. Can you give me a little tip, a little taste of what that process is when you're guiding people through that inventory, and how you help them discover that?
Well, I always tell people it takes a lot of work, because it is self-analysis. It is, again, looking at what inspired you in your work, in your professional life, and what drained you. What did you not like doing, and what did you love doing? And identifying those, and then moving on to, and it's really going back into segments of your younger life, and your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. Again, what did you do? What skills did you have? Would you do it again? Would you not do it again? It's really an extensive amount of self-examination that will get you somewhere at the end where you can apply and be passionate about what you want to do. So from that perspective, from the perspective of presenting yourself so that you can make that transition, that is more, I think, looking at, again, it's not always so extensive that you can't make a transition quicker. If what you've done, if those transferable skills apply to where you want to go, and you know that's where you want to go. And so sometimes you can do that. Just look at what have I done, and how does it apply? I always tell the story of a young man up near where I live who started dog walking and became so successful, did it for 10 years and became so successful. I mean, he used to be in pictures in the magazine all the time because he'd be walking like 20 dogs at a time. You can imagine that as a dog owner. But he wound up buying land and opening like a doggy daycare, and he had a following, and that's what he does now. So think about what your dream is and what will make you happy, and then, go after it. Yeah.
You're making me want to pivot my career. Maybe I'm going to have to start walking 20 dogs so I can live on the farm with dogs.
Exactly. And they all listened to him. It was so cute.
Oh, that's so cool. It sounds like heaven. So what role does networking play for older workers looking for new opportunities, and how would you say they can build and maintain strong professional network when maybe they're finding a whole new pool of people because it's a different field?
Oh my God, Hunter, I'm obsessed with networking.
Yes.
It's interesting because people are sometimes, especially older people, are afraid of it. They think it used to be when I was young, and you'd go to an event and you'd hand out a resume and that's it. No, it's more like planting a seed to build a relationship today, and that's what it needs to be. So I think that statistically, studies have shown that conservative number, 70% of jobs are done through networking or filled through networking. And some studies say 80%, and especially as you get older. So I think networking needs to begin, if you're working, where you work, building those relationships, maintaining those relationships and getting those connections. So when you step away, you can go to those people, and it's not a matter of saying, well, I need a job. Do you have a job? It's a matter of saying, maybe they can open a door for you. Maybe they know someone who knows someone who knows someone. It's those 6 degrees that make a difference. So it starts, I think, when you work, building those relationships and building, just your identity with colleagues, stepping up. But outside of that, of course, you would make a list of friends and family to begin with. And just to say, I'm actively interested in another opportunity. And if you know of anyone, please let me know. But also professional associations, alumni associations, even alumni associations. When you get on LinkedIn, there might be an alumni association group that you from your school that you can join. Groups, I think, are very effective on LinkedIn. So look for those, or industry groups. When I was recruiting for pharmaceuticals, I was in all the clinical trial and such groups on LinkedIn. So discussion boards and of course LinkedIn, those are all important to get your identity out. You're building a brand basically today. And that's part of our course, is how to build your brand and get your name out there. So you need to participate when you have your LinkedIn profile up. You need to comment or participate somewhere. You need to look for people. Use LinkedIn to network by. So for example, if you go to Age Friendly Institute and you come up with a list of 6 companies that are in your industry and that are of interest to you, well, then filter down on LinkedIn and look for people in those companies. Look at their profiles, see if there's any common ground, or Google the people and see if they've had a podcast, been on a podcast, had a blog, anything where you can reach out and say, I heard you speak about this and I'm passionate about it. I experienced it in my work, and I would just be so grateful if you could just spend 10 or 15 minutes with me and share your insight. Or if they're doing what you want to transition to, reach out and say, I see that your career path has taken you on a journey that I would like to transition into. Again, if you can give me some insight, I would greatly appreciate it. And you might reach out to 10, 15 people who say no, but you make it one who says yes. And so that's where you want to build that relationship. It's very important. I mean, it's again, and because you're experienced, because you're an older employee, you have something to offer. Because maybe there's something, if you look at the companies, if you look at their mission statements, if you look at them in the news, what's going on with them, maybe there's something that you've had experience with. So when you find those people on LinkedIn, you can go ahead and reach out and try to make a connection. And that's really what the networking is. It's not as we used to do. Here, give me your card. I want a job. The same thing if you participate in conferences or webinars or professional association meetings. It gives you, number one, the opportunity to have your name get out there because you're in the attendees, and number two, to see who's speaking and see what they're talking about, and then reach out to them afterward and say, I was impressed with your talk. I found it invaluable, and blah blah blah. And so maybe you'll make a connection.
Yeah. And we can do that today. I hope your LinkedIn starts blowing up today.
Yes, you can all get me on LinkedIn. Yes.
Yeah. So what's one myth about aging and career growth that you want to debunk, and why?
It's primarily the social construction of age and retiring. It's really because life expectancy has increased, because quality of life has increased. We all, fortunately, most of us are healthier, even at advanced ages, that we see people working into their 80s and 90s, and they should have that option. The beauty of working into your older years, though, should be, again, that you're doing something where when you wake up in the morning, you're happy to do it. Because we can't, when you read about longevity, it used to be a cycle of 3 segments of your life where you grew up, got educated, then your career, your professional life, and then your retirement. And now most of this research brings it into 4 segments where it's because of longer life. So you're going to have what's called a third quarter, which is where you're going to find the work that inspires you. As I said, when you go back and examine what drained you and what inspired you. So that's the work that you want to look for. And the myth is that people can't do that. Yes, they can. The myth is that, okay, well, they're 65. Honestly, when I got my last job, they had no idea how old I was. And when I left, they were surprised by how old I was. And so, there are judgments, and again, the construction of this is what 65 or 75 is. No, it's not. It's very individual to begin with. So I think that's, to me, that's an enormous myth. I have one child who always tells me social construction is my favorite term since I went to school. And it is, because it's unfortunate, and it's what creates a lot of what we believe, and a lot of it is wrong. So we can see every day the number of centenarians that are in the world, that's increasing. And so, and we of course hear all about the blue zones and how to live longer and how to treat ourselves better. And yeah, that's all good. So, I think that's a big myth that I would like to see totally squashed. It's just squashed.
I second that. We got a question from the chat. How would you represent yourself to recruiters, maybe when you're making this transition and you're putting yourself out there? What are tips when talking to or connecting with recruiters?
Well, recruiters and hiring managers have one goal. Their goal is to, as quickly as possible, fill the job they have with a person who will have the shortest learning curve and alleviate their workload and do the best job. So what you need to do, and this I think is very important, is to research the companies that you're targeting, research the jobs that you're looking at, and be able, again, to come to the table and show that recruiter the value of what you bring to the table, but not just the value of what you bring, but how it impacts the job you want to do, how you can improve that job, how you can help them be more successful. You need to be specific. On resumes today, you need to have, at least in a few places around the resume, quantifiable results. You can say, I improved customer satisfaction, but you need to say, I improved customer satisfaction by 20% or 15% or whatever it was. You need to have, or, I managed an intense workload with client inquiries. Well, what does that mean? You took 50 a week or 500? So you need to be a little bit specific in some instances. Quantifiable results are measured today. You also need to make their job easier because recruiters, they do have a lot on their plate. They do have a lot to take care of. And so if you have a resume that is across the board, okay, this is what I've done, and it's across the board. Maybe you've worked for 30 years, and so you've done this, and this. It doesn't help them identify what you can do specific to what they need done. So you really need to model your resume to that. You need to be able to tweak it. That's the purpose of having a resume that you can tweak and that you can put those keywords in. And again, the keywords need to be what is utilized today, the jargon that's utilized today. I think it's important that you look at it. And another thing, if you're going for an interview, if you video yourself on the phone, have a family member or a friend interview you, and get on and dress for it, and get on your phone and record it, and then look at it and say, would I hire me? So how are you presenting yourself? And that's important. It needs to be very upbeat. You need to be energetic and passionate, and you need to be targeting what they need done. It used to be an objective, I want to find the best job for me. Not anymore. It needs to be, what are you going to do for them? Because that's the way the mindset is today.
So if you could design the perfect workplace for older workers, what unique features or perks would it have?
It would definitely have cross-generational teams. I think that not only do we have a lot to offer as older employees, but we have a lot to learn. And a cross-generational team sees everything in a broad light, because you're going to see it different than I'm going to see it. And we can get value from both perceptions, and we can learn from each other. So definitely I would want cross-generational teams. I would like established mentorship programs, please. Again, both ways, two-way street. a lot of education on the isms, and especially on the microaggressions that are unacceptable because they're out there. And also along that line, an employee resource group for older employees. And ideally, flexibility and work-life balance, because I think that third quarter, that's part of the third quarter success, is the flexibility. So again, it's doing work that's difficult. It's doing work, it can be challenging. All of that is doable, but you need to be able to enjoy life too. And so you need to have some balance there. You need to be able to control that a little.
Yeah. So I guess, am I in my third quarter now? Because those are all the things that I'm looking for and trying to do.
Yes, you can be in your third quarter. A little early, but go for it.
I'm like in between 2 and 3 right now, huh?
Well, I think we're changing overall from that
Yeah.
perspective. And I think the younger generation is helping us change. But it actually needs to be applied, I think, to the more experienced employees.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're almost out of time, Helen. What's the best way for folks to stay connected with you and keep the conversation going?
Well, I'm on, as I mentioned, LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn newsletter that comes out monthly, and my website is tanagui.com. And you can always email me there or message me on LinkedIn, and I am pretty good at responding. So I do. And you can also sign up for a free consultation on my website. If you have a question that we didn't answer and you want to talk about it, that's fine. Just go ahead and set up a consultation.
I love that. I love that.
And I thank everyone for attending, and I thank you, Hunter, for
oh, I thank you, Helen. I hope we get to see each other in person soon again. That was so nice when we did that.
Only if you bring Francis.
Of course, I don't go anywhere without him. Except for Zoom calls, because he's not interested.
No, he's smart.
It's really funny. As soon as I'm about to take my lunch break, he's gonna come in and be like, okay, you pet me now.
It's time.
It's time for playtime. Well, yes. Always a delight, and I can't wait until we get to do it again. Thank you so much for making the time today, Helen.
Thank you all very much. And hi, Meg.